Kelsey Grammer's daughter, Greer Grammer, is opening up like never before, revealing a deeply emotional and shockingly complicated story that most people never knew about. And despite growing up with one of the most recognizable last names in Hollywood, Greer's reality was far from privileged, far from glamorous, and in her own words, far from what anyone assumes about her childhood. Today, her confession about a 12-year estrangement from her father is sending shockwaves across the entertainment world, reshaping public perception of both her and the legendary actor who raised America's most beloved TV psychiatrist, Dr. Frasier Crane. The truth is that for more than a decade of her life, Greer Grammer barely knew her father. She wasn't raised on studio sets, she wasn't basking in Hollywood luxury, she wasn't surrounded by celebrity circles or guided into show business by an influential parent. Instead, she grew up watching her father from afar, literally on television, wondering why the man she saw adored by millions wasn't present in her real life. And now she's opening the vault of memories she once locked away, sharing intimate details about abandonment, longing, reconciliation, and healing. Greer Grammer was born in 1992 to Kelsey Grammer and Barry Buckner, a relationship that didn't last long and left Greer growing up primarily with her mother. For the first few years, Greer has faint memories of her father being around, moments that she describes as flashes of childhood, tiny snapshots of a man who would eventually become a stranger. She remembers going to a preschool play where he showed up, she remembers glimpses of his presence, and she remembers a party she attended when she was very young, just one of those memories that sits blurry at the back of the mind, yet feels significant. But then, quite suddenly and without explanation, those moments stopped, the phone calls stopped, the visits stopped, the father-daughter connections stopped. Greer revealed that she has no clear memory of when the absence actually began. Her therapist asked her once if she remembered the exact moment she realized he was no longer part of her daily life, and she said no. She believes her mind may have blocked it out for a reason, but what she does remember is the confusion, the quiet hurt, and the loneliness of growing up knowing the world admired her father, while she spent years wondering if he even remembered her birthday. For 12 years, Greer and her father were essentially estranged, not by her choice, not by some dramatic falling out, but simply by distance, silence, and circumstances she was too young to understand. And this is where the emotions rise in the story, because as she grew older, she became painfully aware of the contrast between her life and the lives of the children her father was raising more actively. Greer recalls sitting at the kitchen counter doing homework while her mother watched a television segment. On the screen was her father, smiling, comfortable, happy, discussing a home he had purchased in the Hamptons for his family. She watched him with his other children, his other life, his other world. And even as a child, she understood that whatever she was seeing didn't include her. She said she didn't think, oh, that's the life I could be living, but rather, that's the life I was never part of. That kind of realization can shape a person. It can create insecurities, it can create identity questions. And Greer admits she struggled with all of it. She even wrote letters to her father when she was a little girl, letters that resembled fan mail more than messages from a daughter. In those letters, she asked questions like, "Do you think of me?" and "Do you miss me?" She didn't write to get something from him. She wrote simply to feel like she existed to him. And perhaps the most heartbreaking detail is that she never got a response. For years, Greer built her own life without her father. She went to school, discovered her passion for performing, competed in pageants, and eventually became Miss Teen Malibu. And yet, with every achievement, there was always the shadow of a father who wasn't there to see it. There was one unexpected moment when she briefly crossed paths with him long before the official reunion happened. She was 11 years old, wandering through a Blockbuster video store, when she suddenly saw her father. Instead of running toward him, she ran away. She hid. She wasn't ready. She didn't know what to say. And she didn't know whether he would recognize her or pretend not to. For an 11-year-old girl, that kind of emotional overwhelm is almost unimaginable. But everything changed when she turned 16. As Miss Teen Malibu, she was doing community service at a Christmas tree lot, one of those volunteer events meant to help the city while promoting the pageant. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon, but fate had other plans. Standing a short distance away was her father, with his then-wife Camille Grammer and their children. She noticed him, but she didn't know whether to approach. 12 years of distance is a long time to cross with a single step. Then, out of nowhere, Kelsey Grammer approached her. He looked at her closely, almost studying her features, before asking gently, "Are you Greer?" It was the moment she had unconsciously waited for her entire life. A moment filled with confusion, relief, fear, hope, and disbelief all at once. She said, "Yes, I am." And for the first time in 12 years, they actually spoke. That single exchange led them to meeting again for lunch the following week. They talked, they caught up, they filled gaps that had been empty for more than a decade. Kelsey asked her about college, about what she wanted to do with her life, about her interests, about her dreams. And for the first time, Greer felt like her father was acknowledging her as a young woman with a future. It didn't magically fix their relationship, but it opened the door to creating one. Over the years, Greer and her father slowly built something real. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't seamless, it wasn't a storybook reunion, but it was theirs. She had suddenly entered a world that had always been tied to her, yet never opened to her. She met siblings she barely knew, she saw glimpses of the life he lived without her, and she learned to accept both the good and the complicated parts of reconnecting with a parent who wasn't present during the most formative years of her life. Even now, as an adult, Greer admits that she is still processing it all in therapy. She is still trying to understand the emotional impact of those missing years. She is still exploring the ways her childhood shaped her adulthood. And she is still reconciling the dual identity of being a Grammer by name, but not by upbringing. One of the most surprising and painful parts of her public confession came when she addressed the label Nepo baby. In Hollywood, the term has become a way to describe children who benefit from their parents' fame. And on the surface, Greer fits the description, a celebrity daughter pursuing acting. But she says this perception couldn't be further from the truth. People assume she grew up with influence, connections, and open doors. They assume she was raised in luxury, surrounded by opportunity. But in reality, she says the only thing she got from her father for most of her life was his last name. And even that came with more questions than advantages. She wasn't raised on movie sets, she wasn't handed roles, she wasn't guided by a famous father. She built her acting career on her own, driven by passion, not nepotism. And the emotional weight of being called a Nepo baby feels unfair to her because it erases her actual lived experience. While Greer speaks openly about her past, Kelsey Grammer himself has acknowledged shortcomings in his relationships with his older children. He has spoken publicly about regrets, about mistakes, and about wanting to be better. He has said that although he wasn't always present, he believes it's never too late to show up for his kids. His family life has been complex, stretched across several marriages, multiple children, and personal struggles that have played out both privately and publicly. As for Greer, she continues to move forward with determination, clarity, and emotional honesty. She is not trying to villainize her father. She is simply sharing her truth, a truth shaped by absence, by longing, by unexpected reunion, and by the complicated process of rebuilding a relationship that was once lost. She is not hiding the pain she experienced, but she is also not denying the growth that has come from speaking about it. Her story is resonating with thousands of people, not because she's a celebrity, but because her experience reflects something deeply human, the desire to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be loved by a parent. Her vulnerability opens conversations about emotional abandonment, healing, resilience, and the complexity of family relationships. And in sharing her journey, Greer is rewriting the narrative people have always assumed about her. She is reclaiming her identity not as the daughter of a famous actor, but as a woman who overcame a silent childhood wound and turned it into a story of rebuilding, forgiveness, and truth. Her courage in opening up not only sheds light on her own life, but also reveals a more nuanced side of Kelsey Grammer, one that includes mistakes, regrets, and efforts to reconnect. It shows that behind the fame, behind the iconic roles, behind the Hollywood legacy, there are real human experiences, real emotions, and real complexities that even the brightest spotlight cannot erase. Greer Grammer's story is a reminder that family is not perfect, fame is not protection, and healing is not a straight line. It is fragile, layered, and deeply personal. And sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is tell the truth about where they come from.